You can build anything in Blender using a circle, but how did I get here and why? So I started in 3D software from 3ds Max, where I completed exactly 2 tutorials before moving to Blender as I no longer had access to 3ds Max. Blender as a free alternative is great, but I haven't found a pen tool that works for me quite well. You see, in 3ds Max, the pen tool works very similar and is in usage and in the way it looks to working in Photoshop or say Adobe Illustrator. I couldn't quite find the same thing in Blender. For me, whenever I use the pen tool, most of the time it'll work in 3 dimensions in a very annoying manner, like can't extrude afterwards. So instead I used circles. So what I did in Blender instead is usually make a circle with about 100 vertices, give or take depending on my mood for that day, and then hand move each vertices into the shape that I want. Which is where this image comes from. Inspired by this image, I decided to make this video, where I was originally going to make everything using just a circle, but then I genuinely gave up on the hammer, mostly because there was just no point in making it out of a circle. Like, I could if I wanted to, but it would have been just easier to use a square and then use a subdivide tool like a sane person would, which is what I ended up doing. But it has a better analogy for what I was originally going to go with, which is the fairy tale where the soldier makes a pot of soup out of an axe. If you haven't heard it, it goes something like this. So, an old soldier was once on the way home, and he came across a village because it was getting dark, and he was like, hey, can I come over and chill at your guys' place for a second? And an old woman was like, yeah, sure, come over. It's nice to serve the soldiers that work for the country or whatnot. And he was like, well, I'm hungry. And she's like, well, I'm hungry too. And you could see that she had a lot of food, but she was being stingy, whatnot, and she was like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'd have to go home and be hungry all night. I'm sorry, I don't have any food for you, dear soldiers beloved. And he was like, okay, let me get you this magic trick, right? Give me that axe you got in the corner there, and I'll make you a porridge out of it. I'll make you a soup. So he goes and he starts boiling the axe, and then he tastes it, and the woman's like, that's fucking weird, I love magic tricks, so. And he tastes it, and he's like, I think it needs salt. So she comes over and she gives him salt. He repeats the process again. He's like, I think it needs some porridge. Comes over, gives him porridge. Rinse, repeat until he's got soup. He's like, oh my god, the soup is delicious. And she's like, oh my god, it's an axe soup. And the axe actually did nothing. You could not taste the axe in the porridge. Just like in here, I technically didn't make the axe out of a circle, like I promised. To be fair though, it all worked out well. Cue elevator music because I don't know what to say here and there's nothing important in this section. Here's a timestamp for when I continue. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, 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 oh. was originally gonna make it with a realistic shader, to be honest. Hence why there's so many floating bits in the soup that I was trying to make in the middle of it. But I didn't end up doing so, and it actually turned out quite a bit better. So I'll just explain how I did the toon shader instead. So to achieve the toon shader, you need to go Shift A, search up shader to RGB, connect the principal BSDF output into the shader input of the shader to RGB. Then search up color ramp with Shift A and go color to FAC. And then switch your color ramp where it says ease and all that other like options. Switch it to constant, which is the bottom option, and then go from there just fiddling with it and put the color output to the surface output of the material output. I found it from a different tutorial on YouTube, so I'm sure you could probably find it too if you just search up a toon shader. But yeah, this shader only works in Eevee render, which is the one I'm currently using. You can find where that is at in the side menu with the two little switch buttons on it. The second bottom thing that looks like a camera is where you can find your type of render. The cool thing about this toon shader is that whatever values you put into the principal VSDF, like metallic and all that other stuff, it actually adapts to that, which is very good. And not a lot of shaders actually do that, not all of them. So it's very easy, very useful for any render you want to make, very quick. This is post-editing move. That whole thing was supposed to be done in the shader menu. If you look at any of your windows, in the top left corner of them, there's this little icon that can be changed to anything. Click on the one that looks like the bubble. So here's me adding the colors we talked about earlier with the appropriate shader. I kept the same metallic options on the pot, I'm pretty sure. And then I added some more ripples into it. You can see how I did that. Another thing that you can do is edit the mesh to make sure that there's crevices, so you can actually like make it seem more like wood on the axe handle. That way, without actually using a proper wood-like shader. You can do the same with mushrooms or, doors or something, with anything you want, but it's just a good tip to keep in mind when you're using this one. Which is what you can see me doing right now in the video. All that's left now is to relax and enjoy the speed paint, and see the final product in the end. The end for the day, and here's the final product. What do you think?